The average household income here in New Zealand is around $102,000. If we combine that with the average savings rate of about 8%, we can estimate that roughly New Zealand households save about $8,000 per year. Now, if we take that $8,000 and we assume they save roughly the same amount right through an entire 40-year working career, we land on a final number of around $320,000 saved. Now, it doesn't take much thinking to see why a lot of households, not just here in New Zealand, but all around the world, are really concerned about their finances and how they're going to have enough money to retire when they get to that stage in their life. Now, I am certainly no millionaire. I am 25 years old. I earn a fairly normal income at my job, but I've been able to make a few key changes over the past couple of years in my life that have really propelled me forward and also have me feeling really, really comfortable about being able to reach millionaire status and do it many times over and a lot earlier than a lot of people do. So in this video, I want to give you my top 5 wealth building tips that I have implemented in my own life and that I've picked up over the last couple of years and share them with you. So if you do enjoy, please hit like and hit subscribe. But for now, let's get straight into it. Now, my first tip, and this is a lesson I learned way back when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which was the first book on money that I ever read, and was really impactful actually on my own life. And that is having a focus on accumulating assets. Now, whether that means you're someone like me who likes to purchase into the stock market, or whether you like to purchase into real estate, basically, the idea goes like this. If you can put $1 to work in a cash producing asset that is going to produce something for you over time, that is going to help you compound your net worth over a long period. Now, if you save $1 and put that into a bank account that earns basically nothing, that money is just sitting stagnant and is not helping you get to financial freedom as fast as you possibly can. Now, if we instead put that money into accumulating assets, let's say I have $100,000 in the stock market, earn an average rate of return of say 8%, that is an extra $8,000 of income that I didn't have to go out and earn in my job. And if I reinvest that $8,000, next year I'm going to have $108,000 without having to put a single extra cent in, and I'm going to get even more than $8,000 the next year. So really, in order to try and turn that 320 grand that you're probably roughly going to save if you're the average household here in New Zealand into something much more substantial, you really have to have a focus on accumulating assets and building extra cash flow from those assets. Now, the second tip is to be frugal, and although that might not sound particularly exciting, it really is a common trait of very wealthy people. Even someone like mega billionaire Warren Buffett is famous for still living in a pretty normal home, living a fairly normal lifestyle, not going on extravagant vacations, and that's because someone like Warren Buffett really understands this concept of opportunity cost. And when I really got this idea shoved in my head, this is something that changed my own personal spending quite substantially. Now, opportunity cost basically goes like this. If I spend $1 today on something like a coffee, or spend $5 on a coffee, say, that $5 is gone forever. I drink my coffee, I enjoy it, that's great, but I'm really not getting any long-term benefit out of that $5. Now, if I instead go ahead and put that $5 into the stock market, and again it generates an 8% return per year or whatever that might be, that $5 is going to double roughly every 9 or 10 years. Now, if we fast forward a few decades, in 10 years that $5 will become, say, $10. If we go forward another 10 years, that $10 will be $20. If we go forward another 10 years, that $20 will be $40. If we go forward another 10 years, that $40 will be $80, and so on, however long you want to compound that out. And understanding that me spending $1 on some sort of item that is going to disappear and I'm not going to get a long-lasting benefit from is actually sacrificing much more than $1 from my future self, is something that allowed me to behave much more frugally and not spend money on stupid stuff that I frankly don't need. Now, my third tip is to build multiple sources of income. And I know you're probably sick of hearing that tip from pretty much every personal finance video you've probably ever watched on YouTube, but I'm going to take a slightly different perspective on this one. Now, most people will make the argument that having multiple sources of income adds some protection to your financial life. So if you lose one of your main sources of income, you still have these other ones to fall back on. And that may be true, but in my experience, adding a second or third source of income outside of my own everyday job, that's really something that has propelled my savings rate forward. That has been really the major benefit of additional income sources. I earn, like I said earlier, a fairly normal salary in my everyday job. And I was able to save a good amount of money on that income, and I still do. And it's much higher than the, $8,000 a year that most people save. But really what has propelled my savings rate forward is adding these new additional income sources and not moving my spending up to accommodate that new income. I've still continued to live almost like a university student in a lot of ways. Live really frugally, recognizing that there's opportunity cost to spending a lot of money on things that you don't need. And I've continued to live on that sort of base level of expenses, even as additional income has come in from things like this YouTube channel and everything associated with that. And it's allowed me to get to a point where, although I earn a fairly normal salary in my job, I think I might be a fraction above the New Zealand average, but really I'm not earning six figures or anything like that. Even though I'm at that point, it will allow me to save probably about $45,000 this year. I've made massive strides forward in my savings rate, and I've been able to put a lot more money away as a result. So there's no two ways around it. Having a higher income will help you save more money, and it will propel you forward. Now, not everyone has the opportunity to increase their income in their everyday job at a substantial rate. If you earn a typical salary, it's not that likely that you're going to be able to double that amount, in a couple of years and double it again in a couple of years after that. You really have to go out and create that new source of income for yourself. For me, it's been through YouTube, from ad revenue, sponsors, all the things associated with YouTube. A little bit from dividend income in my portfolio and that kind of stuff, but I really don't count that. That's kind of its own vehicle, sort of compounding away. Really creating these new income sources is what has been the key driver for me propelling myself forward at a much, much faster rate than I would have been able to do just in my everyday job on its own. And although $45,000 saved in a year might sound really impressive when you compare it to the $8,000 that the average household here in New Zealand saves, I know that people are doing a hell of a lot more than I am. There's probably some of you watching this channel that are doing much more than I am. And if you look at, my friend Brandon over in Australia on the New Money, formerly Aussie Wealth Creation YouTube channel, he's gone from saving about $40,000 or $50,000 a year, which he made a video on probably a year or two ago, to making about $20,000 a month and being able to save substantially more than that. And that's been made entirely possible by looking to generate new income sources from new ventures that you never might have thought that you'd done maybe just a year or two ago. And if you're lacking the motivation to really go out and create a new income source or take some risks and do some sort of new venture that you've never thought of doing, here's some stats that really blew my mind when I first heard them that are hopefully a little bit motivating. Now, if you take a full week, 7 days, 24 hours in a day, and you take away, let's say, a full-time job, let's say you work 40 hours a week, let's say you also sleep 8 hours a night throughout that 7-day week, that still leaves you with about 72 hours in the week to do other things. Sure, you're going to probably spend some of that time commuting, some of it eating and exercising and all that kind of stuff, but still you've got close to 2 full-time work weeks available to go and do other things. Maybe you have to look after your family, and sure, that's going to take up time. I am in a position where that is not something I have to worry about just yet, but still, there is more time than you probably think available to go and do other things. I still spend far too much time watching Netflix than I probably should. I could certainly be going and making another YouTube video if I wanted to, rather than watching some junk on TV. So there's plenty of time, even if you do have other commitments. I'm traveling down to the South Island for work next week, and I'm still going to be putting out 2 to 3 videos on this channel, just like I do every week. If you really want to prioritize something and make it happen, you've just got to do it. Now, my fourth tip is to take calculated risks, whether that's in your business life, whether that is in your investing life. I think it's important to take calculated risks. We talk all the time on the channel about how to minimize risk in your investments. That's one of the main topics of this channel, but still there is no such thing as a risk-free investment, at least not one that's going to generate a reasonable return and help propel your net worth forward over a long period of time. Robert Kiyosaki, again from Rich Dad Poor Dad, often talks about how people that don't have substantial net worths that they've built over time are often absolutely terrified of losing money. And although losing money is not good and it can set you back and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of really wealthy people take calculated risks. If you take one of my favorite investors on the planet, Monish Pabrai, he says that even the best investment analysts in the world are wrong at least 1/3 of the time. And regardless of that, he's still been able to generate really good investment returns and grow not only his own personal net worth, but also the net worth of his investors in his investment fund. So take calculated risks. Another story I love from Monish is that, he was working an everyday job. He went out and started his own business on the side while still working that job. And that meant that if his business failed, he could still continue his job. And as that business took off, he had no risk. He had a little bit of money initially put into that business to get it up and running. But if the whole thing fell over, he still had his job there on the back burner. That's tip number 4, take calculated risks. Lots of really wealthy people have lost a lot of money over their journey, but there's a whole lot of less wealthy people that have frankly never lost a cent, because they've just been too scared to go out and start businesses or make investments. Now, tip number 5 for building your net worth much quicker than the average person is to set goals. This is something that I've done personally for many years, for not just my finances, but for other goals that I have in life, whether that's sport related or family related or whatever it might be. I think it's really important to set goals, and I think it's important to be accountable to yourself for those goals. This year, for the first time, I have put my goals out there publicly on this YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch a video that I did towards the start of the year on my goals for 2020. I also did an update video so you can sort of keep track of how I am going. And I think it's really important. I think it pushes you. I think it stops you from sitting still and just, doing the same thing on repeat all the time. I think it does help push you forward a lot. So that's the goal that I really like. I like to set achievable but, slightly stretched goals. Things that are possible, but I will really have to work for. And that's a process I go through each and every year. So there are my top 5 tips. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like and hit subscribe. That would be much appreciated. If you did enjoy the video, you can watch some older ones also over there. Hit subscribe over there if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.